Hello, this is Christina Barn. You guys are watching Black Tea News. Hello, welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Barn. Today we're going to be talking about just some crazy stories. Today, one, there was an arrest of an illegal alien who was cutting up people's hearts and other kind of stuff like that. And I'm just like, when is like enough? Like, are stories like this enough to be like, we need to really do something about our border and the people coming in? I'm not saying we don't have our own psychopaths doing stuff here on US soil, but when you're a part of gangs that are like cutting people's hearts, I just think we should really do our best to not have such people in the country. So I'm gonna play that report for you guys. Also, there is a report in a school in California where they are doing like secret LGBT clubs, which that's actually not. Um, well, this particular story is new, but um, there stuff like this has been going on. And actually, we talked about it last week, I think, because I showed you guys a TikTok of someone who did a skit about like teachers trying to secretly like have these clubs and lying to the parents and about their kids being in these LGBT clubs. And I pointed out that Libs of TikTok like takes stuff like that, just shows everybody and just repost it. And that's what Libs of TikTok does. However, this stuff is real, and there was examples of stuff like this going on in California before. So I'm not surprised to hear that this story was happening in California. But of course, parents were very upset by it, and they should be. But I appreciate parents going and speaking at city councils and stuff, and talking to the school boards, and telling them off and stuff. But people do need to consider that these schools are not. I mean, you put them in the public schools at your own peril, and even some private schools won't be safe as well, especially if they have some activists that kind of fall in the cracks or whatever. Also, I want to give a review of the movie Cabrini, which was really good. Spoiler alert for the review that I'm going to give. I really enjoyed it. So I saw it last night, so I wanted to talk about it and encourage other people to go ahead and check out the film. It was just really well done. And if we have time, I want to also talk about some of the controversy that Ben Shapiro found himself in yesterday. I saw him trending, and I had listened to his show, a lot of his show yesterday. And so when I saw him trending, I'm like, why has Ben trending? And people were so upset, both sides of the aisle, about some of his commentary on Social Security. And I just found the whole thing's kind of fascinating. But we'll see if we have time to get through that today. But anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation to blacktnews.com. It does cost to stream and run my website, all that stuff. So you guys can support. I do appreciate it. You guys can also check out different merch that we have available at the store, like this cool "I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For" shirt and other things as well. I ask that you guys also check out some of my books that are available. I have nonfiction books like Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear, and also, of course, Guys Blatantly Against Abortion. And then those are my two nonfiction books, and the rest are like historical fiction, fantasy books that, well, some are. I have a historical fiction fantasy series, The Color of God's Eyes. I have children's chapter books and like Super Kid 2, which I told you guys that my nephew is reading through Super Kid. And man, kids don't give you any, they are not chill, and they don't give you any slack. So he's reading through it. And so he's like, "How long does it take you to write a book?" And I'm like, "Well, I said, the fastest I've written a book is a month." And I said, "But usually it might take about months normally. Maybe it just kind of depends on what's going on and what I'm working on and stuff. And so most people are very impressed when you can finish a book in 6 months. Most people are blown away when you say, I've written a book in a month, right? And I'm talking about like a novel. The Color of God's Eyes is specifically the one I wrote in a month. And it's one of my favorites and people's favorites that they get, one that I recommend and other people recommend out of all my body of work. But he says, well, shouldn't you have more super kids done now? And shouldn't you have written more books? And I'm like, Daniel, I've I've written a lot of books. Like, it's not just Super Kid. I have a lot of books. Like, most people are like 17. That's crazy. And this kid is just busting my chops. I'm like, Daniel, you know, I have other stuff that I'm working on that I'm doing. And he's like, okay, it just, you know, you only have two of these. And it just seems like you should have more. And he's I think 7. So anyway, that's a kid for you. That's a kid for you. But if you're interested, I do have a super kid too. I just thought that we had that conversation on Sunday. Every time I try to like, I don't know, have a conversation about some kind of accomplishment or whatever, he's you know, like, did my video did this on YouTube and I got this much on TikTok, and he's just like, Ryan has how many followers? Because he, I don't know how much he watches Ryan anymore, like Ryan's Toy World. But he used to watch that all the time. But now he's like really into like watching Minecraft and stuff and playing that. Anyway, it came to mind. Just thought I would share the trials and tribulation of being an auntie. Uh, Anyway, if you're watching live, you guys can send super chats. If you're on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, you guys can send stars. If you're watching it back later, you guys can send like super thanks and stuff. Okay, so I usually do have a meme, and I guess I do have a meme, but I'm gonna save that to the portion where I do my review because it's related to that. So let me jump into this crazy story um about this illegal alien lady who is chopping out people's hearts and stuff. They caught her, thank God. Um, but man, we need to do something about our border, bruh.
We begin in the ABC 7 Alert Center with breaking news and a warning. You may find the details of this story disturbing. A woman accused in Mexico of several.
And seriously, disturbing.
Murders and body dismemberments, even removing victims' hearts, is arrested in El Paso. And within the last 10 minutes, ABC 7 obtained this arrest photo. She is Michelle Angelica Pineda, also known as La Cheli. She was wanted for 5 murders in Juarez. She's also suspected of being involved in several other killings. Investigators say she crossed illegally into the U.S. and was operating on behalf of the gang Artistas Asesinos, or assassin artists. The FBI says Pineda was known for extreme brutality, dismembering bodies, removing hearts, and placing the hearts in front of Santa Muerte statues. Authorities say they found guns, machetes, and fentanyl, as well as other drugs at the motel. El Paso's FBI says several law enforcement agencies worked together to arrest Pineda at an El Paso motel.
Assassin artiste. And again, I'm aware that we have some, you know, uh wackadoodles who do some grotesque things that I'm sure inspire episodes of Criminal Minds and whatnot, but um I certainly don't want more of the dregs of society coming over. I played a video for you guys. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. There was a black woman who is in Chicago who brought up the beginning of Scarface, and when the sometimes the movies or some kind of like words or whatever to kind of set up the scene or set up the time period or whatever, and it talked about how people were coming over, um, from I believe Cuba and other stuff places, but they were emptying their jail cells. So you had a lot of the dregs of society that were coming into the United States. And so they're just kind of like, that is what's happening. And I'm not saying everybody who comes over has some kind of like criminal history. There's people who are coming for, economic opportunities for the betterment of their family and other stuff like that. Though I don't appreciate stories where there's like people like risking the lives of their children trying to cross the Rio Grande. Um, that's not right, guys. But there's still people with crazy records crossing over. But the fact of the matter is, everyone's coming over illegally, and you don't know what kind of people are coming over. You don't know what kind of people are coming over. So I'm concerned. I mean, I've been concerned, but I'm like, dismembering people and chopping out their hearts and for these gangs, it's just really nutty. It's just really nutty that we have no real control over our border. And for what? So people can pile in and pump up the numbers, so places like Michigan and other places don't lose more electoral power, so they could, I don't know, do mass uh, amnesty for people, and then all of a sudden they believe that those people are going to vote Democrat for the rest of their lives and just basically make it a one party country. Like, is that? I assume that's kind of where the long game is, because it doesn't make sense otherwise. Because everyone knows you could just reinstitute some of the things that Trump was doing, and it would slow down all of this mass migration with the United States. They don't want to do that. They just want to point the fingers at each other. And there's Republicans who aren't, who don't really want to solve this problem because they like cheap labor. And that's an issue. But we got to get a handle on this. This is insane. we gotta get a handle on this. This is insane. And there's already different stories that we hear about, like Laken Riley, who, Joe Biden botched everything associated with her name at the State of the Union, and then he said the person who did it was illegal, and then he got in trouble from his side of the aisle for saying they're illegal, and then he said undocumented, and he regretted using that phrase, and then his spokespeople were like, he never apologized, and which we went through that the other day. But um she's not the only story. There's stories of people being killed all over the place, assaulted all over the place. um so what are we gonna do about it? Crime is bad, especially brutal crimes that we're talking about, no matter who commits it. But there are some really dangerous people that are coming in undetected to take advantage of us. And if they keep getting a foothold, especially like at the border, because remember the cartels actually have like drones that are flying around our border to surveil it. And our border patrol is aware of it. The Daily Wire, like, Ben Shapiro was at the border. He's like, "Is that one of ours?" Looking at the drones, we're like, "Nope, that's the cartel. They probably came because they didn't recognize your car." And he's like, "Why don't we just shoot that down?" And I'm like, "Well, that has to go up to a couple different people, and at least that's what they claim. I think we should be able to shoot drones down from drug cartels, but whatever." I've seen some people complain today because there's all sorts of panic on TikTok because they did pass a bill to they're trying to force the sale of TikTok to an American, um so it's not under the thrall of the Chinese government or whatever, or in danger of that or whatnot. And so people are like, y'all can get together to decide this and push this through, but you can't do things to solve the border issue. You can't do thing. And the one video I saw, it had to be someone who was on the left side of the aisle, because they mentioned the border, but they mentioned other things that I'd be like, I don't want to raise the minimum wage. And other sorts of things that I would assume that they're either in the middle or maybe more left leaning or uh whatever. But everybody on both sides of the aisle are concerned about the border. And this border issue is like the number one reason why people should not vote for Joe Biden. Is there's we can name lots of reasons. Uh and people can name lots of reasons not to vote for Trump. I could list you lots of reasons not to vote for Trump, as a Republican myself. However, this border situation and the fact that Biden he's given no inclination that he really wants to solve it, um is the number one reason why he should not be president again, and why it's dire and America can perhaps not afford to have him be president again. When I was about going into the movies yesterday, or maybe it was maybe I think maybe it was during the credits. My sister was like, "What's going on with cannibals at the border?" I was like, "What you talking about?" And I'm like, "There's cannibals in Haiti right now that are like leading." And we talked about that the other day, how they emptied out the prisons in Haiti. And there's a guy named Barbecue, I guess, calling the shots and stuff. That's his cannibal gang name. And my sister was just like, I'm like, yes, Barbecue. And she's like, oh, well, maybe that's what people are talking about, because she was just scrolling on Twitter and stuff. But I guess there's a concern about, people are saying there are concerns about Haitians coming across the border. And I'm like, no, we got to do something. We got to do something. We got to do something. We've got to do something. And I really, 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 really do not want to wait until January 2025 for something to be done. I don't. I don't think we should have to wait that long. If we have to wait that long, because that's just the reality of the situation, that it is what it is. But I don't think we should have to wait that long for some competency to be restored here on the border. And I know that Abbott is trying to do things with the National Guard and putting up fencing and all sorts of stuff. But they got to do something. I really, some people are like, oh yeah, keep doing bad stuff and you'll be defeated. I would rather Biden wake up tomorrow and just start governing well. I would really like that. I would really like that. Even if it would improve his chances of winning again. I would really like if he just now it's a little too late to just be forgiven for all the incompetency, but I would much rather prefer that we would wake up tomorrow and everyone would have some common sense about how to deal with these things. Anyway, let's move on to another crazy story. Let's move on to our next crazy story, guys. So there was a school in California that got busted because a teacher was inviting all kinds of kids to his LGBT club during lunch. So we're going to watch this news report story here and be horrified.
Parents at Elk Grove's Pleasant Grove Elementary School say they were alarmed to discover a third grade teacher was allowed to personally invite all the third through sixth grade classes to a new LGBT club he was starting called the UBU Club. Education activist Heidi Moore discusses the club.
Their children were essentially being recruited, some as young as second grade, by a teacher there. And he was going around telling them that if they it was a club for boys who crush on boys or girls who crush on girls, but that anyone could come because there were fun games that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Moore says permission slips were required for all other clubs and that all available activities were listed in the weekly newsletter.
It just seems that everything they did was very obviously trying to hide it from parents because they didn't require permission slips. They didn't tell parents. They didn't put it in the newsletter, and they held it at lunchtime.
The club's organizer, teacher Daniel Bishop, shared a photo on Facebook of a t-shirt that reads, "I'm the teacher Fox News warns you about," writing, "I think I found my back-to-school shirt." Parents took their complaints and questions to the Elk Grove Unified School Board at a school board meeting earlier this month.
This board has created a district culture where child sexualization isn't the exception, it's the rule.
The establishment of a gay club in elementary school raises concerns about age appropriateness. While fostering inclusivity is vital, it's crucial to evaluate the developmental readiness of our children's young minds for such discussions.
While I understand the importance of providing a safe space for all, I am deeply troubled by the intentional deception regarding the UBU Club.
If this school board had existed in 2005, you'd all be the villains in an episode of Criminal Minds.
In email communication with parents, Pleasant Grove principal Deidre Wood wrote that the club was accidentally left out of the newsletter and would be mentioned in a future newsletter. Wood also said the purpose of the UBU Club is to provide a safe, accepting space for students of the LGBT community. According to Moore, third graders are far too young to be discussing sexuality.
If you want to talk to your children about that, then that's your right. And just like it's any other parent's right to be in control of when they talk to their kids about sexuality and how they do it. And when the school is secretly going around to second and third graders and recruiting them to a club that involves sexual orientation and possible conversations, private conversations about their sexual orientation, and then being told to keep secrets, that's super concerning.
So, lots of thoughts here on such stories like these. Why do you need a club? Because you like, I was thinking about how vulgar I want to be. Just because you like dudes and you're a dude, why do you need a club? Or if you're a girl who likes girls, why do you need a club? Are there clubs of like, do third graders, fourth graders have clubs of I like the boyfriend girlfriend club or something? When I was a kid in kids at school, like we weren't supposed to have like PDAs really, and they discouraged like kissing in school and other stuff like that. And the most they wanted you to do, and I'm talking about like in high school, was hold hands. They discouraged those sorts of things, and so you have these clubs of children who are celebrating who they're sexually attracted to. That's freaking weird. That's freaking weird. That's disgusting. That there's such a focus on it. But the reason why there's such a focus on it is because these adults are living vicariously through these children, and they're trying to just raise up this generation in order to validate their feelings. That's what it is. That's what it is. Because there's no reason to do this at a club with the school. You know what clubs we had in school? We had Spanish club. I was in a Spanish club. Learning about culture and eating food and stuff like that. I was part of the Japanese club. I started that. I didn't learn much Japanese, just a couple of stuff. I didn't get too deep with that. We didn't have a Japanese language class in my high school, but I was really into anime. And we had a teacher he was like a common substitute teacher, and he knew Japanese. So he was like our supervisor, and who would teach us things, and we would, eat Japanese food and learn a bit about the language and more into the culture and other stuff like that. Clubs like that. There were Bible clubs. my youngest sister, she really like was on fire and had a Bible club that she led and really grew in her high school and stuff. But evangelizing your sexuality is weird. Um a UBU club um for everybody celebrating, if you were just in general celebrating like people just kind of like a confidence kind of um club, that'd be fine, I guess. You know, something that I think would be more appropriate to have a pure mediation kind of club. So, if people did come out up against you, you would just kind of learn to deal with it. I just came from I don't know if I want to say a generation of people that just told you to be tougher. Because there's people my age who I guess don't have the kind of same thing instilled with them. But my folks were very much like, particularly my dad, like, people aren't going to like you, and you just gotta get over it. I've told this story before. This story blew up on TikTok, but I'm gonna just tell it again. And the reason why I told it on TikTok is because I was going back and forth with someone over transgender stuff, and they were like, "No, kids need to know that they're accepted," and so on. So I'm like, "Okay, let me tell you the story." My One of my younger sisters, when she was in middle school, there was a music teacher, and kids were saying that she was racist, and I don't even uh know why everybody was saying that or whatever, but she one day in class or whatever, my sister got in trouble for speaking or whatever, and she caught her and didn't catch the other kids, but she addressed my sister, and she's like, "Well, what about those kids or whatever?" And she's like, "I'm dealing with you," when she was the one who got caught or whatever. And I think she went ahead and accused her of being racist, but that's just what people were saying. So she had this accusation lodged against her. And so the panic that white people have when you accuse them of racism is sometimes it's kind of funny, but like, just like, oh. But that because she prepared herself for like parent teacher conferences and had this huge big speech prepared for my dad to prove all the ways that she wasn't a racist and so on. And my dad had a reaction that she was just not expecting, and he said, "Lady, I don't care if you are racist." And she was stunned. And he said she needs to, talking about my sisters, like, she needs to learn to work with people who don't like her. So that was a takeaway. Like, he can't be, I mean, you want your teachers and people to, act professionally or whatever, but the reality of the world, the whole entire world, is you can't control how other people treat you. You can't control how other people feel about you. You can control your actions and how you're going to respond to the world. That's what you can control. And the reality of the situation, and my dad, he's in his 60s, will be 70 in a few years. Um, he's born in 57. Um, he's had to obviously not as deal with things as much as like his parents and their parents and etc. But he's definitely dealt with things with some racist hurdles, uh, police and school teachers and so on. When he was in college and he wasn't doing very well, um, the counselors were like, do not tell us that tell anyone that you're helping, that we're helping you, because if they found out we were trying to help black kids stay in school, like, we'd get in trouble. Like, people had those kind of conversations with him. So he knows that the world can suck. But the question is, how are you going to respond as an individual? The reality is that people aren't always going to treat you nice, and you gotta learn to deal with it sometimes. So her trying to take that way out, you know, he wasn't having it. He wasn't having it. Now, if there was some kind of evidence, like particularly of people treating her unfair or something, that'd be a different story. But as far as how she personally feels, it is what it is. You can't change that. Can't change that, but he still has to have a child who can survive. So and maybe that's something that adults, I mean, the parents should be instilling in their kids, not necessarily like, I don't know, the teachers. So, but I mean, maybe some inspiring life lessons, you know, a movie here or there. But I think those things are mostly uh, important things that parents should be instilling in their kids on how to survive in this world. The teachers should stick to math and science and social studies and etc. Not having clubs for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth graders about who they want to pork, who they'd like to sleep with, who they're sexually attracted to. I think teachers being engaged with that is really gross. Is really gross. And you can say, no, it's not about that. What is it about then? What is it about then? It's not a friendship club. They said for boys who like boys. Like, yeah, if if it's not about that, then why not just let kids have friends at lunch and recess? And why make a special club based around your sexual identity? It's freaking weird. It's freaking weird, guys. Just let kids be kids. Just let kids be kids. That kind of stuff in school is not appropriate. It's just not. And you know what? Back in 2008, when gay marriage was on the chopping block in California, there was a campaign, yes, to pass the ban and no to, you know, keep it legal or whatever in California. And the yes campaign was making commercials like, if we pass this, your kids are going to have to learn about gay stuff in school. And then the no campaign is like, that's silly. No, that's not true. It was absolutely true. It was absolutely true. And so, but anyway, you know, the yes passed, and so they banned gay marriage. I was shocked over all the way over here in Michigan. I'm like, well, that can get banned in California. That can get banned everywhere. I was like, wow, California? But of course, California is not a Republican bastion of freedom or whatever. But there are people who were like, you know what, that is concerning, and I don't want that. And of course, they were correct. And of course, the no campaign was lying. And you know, I guess it was kind of, it wasn't that far too that long ago, 2008. Um, not at all. Maybe in political years it seems like a world away, but we've advanced or regressed in all kinds of different ways since then. And so when people warn about slippery slopes, guys, they're real slick for a reason. And they do want your children to validate the adults and their feelings and so on, because they want them to be prepared to be the next fighters for the cause. As you know, that's what it is. So it was what I mean, I'm not saying there weren't people who were like, oh, we want to um just be private and love who we want to love. I'm not saying that there's not people who genuinely meant that, but there was always activism involved in this stuff that where they want everyone else to validate their lifestyle and what they're doing. And so if that's the case, it can't just be a private thing. It can't be just a private thing when they want to change the world in our culture, in our values. And I wrote an article kind of bridging the gap between that and eventually leading to this place where, you know, it's an LGBT club, so it's everything, including like the gender identity stuff, and all this does kind of connect um together. So I like if school's about math, science, etc. And this stuff is not appropriate for school. It's not appropriate for school, but I'm not surprised. And all you parents out there, I graduated from a high school that I liked. I didn't have I'm not saying there weren't bumps or whatever, or times where I had to stand up for myself or my beliefs or debate teachers and other stuff. There were moments like that I definitely had. And I very introverted person, if you don't know that about me, but I'm not a wilting flower. So I would, speak up at times when I needed to speak up. But I did overall like my high school, and I graduated from public school. But you do run the risk of your children being exposed to people who may want to hide things from you. Uh, so I'd be very cautious of any school you send your kid to, and private school. Some of them you got to watch out for too. So I very strongly feel that I would only do homeschool myself, but you guys gotta, I don't know, pray about that, I suppose. Uh, Next, I think I am going to touch on this Ben Shapiro controversy a little bit because I do have a little bit of time. I'll get to the Cabrini review after that. But yesterday, I was watching Ben Shapiro's show, and I didn't really think much of it, and then I saw that he was trending, and everybody was so upset um stuff that he had said on his show about social security. And I didn't think maybe some things I wouldn't have quite phrased the way that he phrased, or I don't know if I totally, agree with everything that he was kind of saying, but I can't say that it warranted the sort of backlash that he faced yesterday. So I'm just trying to find the clip that was going around that people were commenting on, but he was trending all day uh yesterday when I was noticed it like before I went to the movies and other stuff, and it was just back and forth about the Social Security. Now, the reality of the Social Security situation in the United States is that it's just not feasible. Uh, what we're doing with it, and we are going. It is bankrupt, and something has to be done at some point in time. But no one really wants to do anything about it because it's just bad politics, because people want things at the end of the day. And right and the left, and if you start saying someone's going to get the short end of the stick and someone's going to lose out, you know people aren't too fond of that reality. People want to be lied to, people want to be coddled. So let me go ahead and play this clip that was going around that people were talking about from yesterday's show. Now, if you watch Ben shows today, he thoroughly talks about this and the takes that people had, and explaining his take more thoroughly. So you guys can watch his show today that it basically explains what happened yesterday. It was kind of like, I don't know, I wouldn't have thought anything really about the commentary, but there's folks who watch Daily Wire stuff or stuff on the right, clip it and then post it on the internet, and it explodes usually. So this is one of those such cases, but he had people on both sides of the aisle that were coming for him. So I'm gonna go ahead and play that snippet.
And let's be real about this. It's insane that we haven't raised the retirement age in the United States. It's totally crazy. Joe Biden, if that were the case, Joe Biden should not be running for president. Hey, Joe Biden is 81 years old. The retirement age in the United States at which you start to receive Social Security and you are eligible for Medicare is 65. Joe Biden has technically been eligible for Social Security and Medicare for 16 years, and he wants to continue in office until he is 86, which is 19 years past when he would be eligible for retirement. No one in the United States should be retiring at 65 years old. Frankly, I think retirement itself is a stupid idea unless you have some sort of health problem. Everybody that I know who is elderly, who has retired, is dead within 5 years. And if you talk to people who are elderly and they lose their purpose in life by losing their job and they stop working, things go to hell in a handbasket real quick. But put all of that aside, just on a fiscal level and on a logical level. When Franklin Delano Roosevelt established 65 as the retirement age, the average life expectancy in the United States was 63 years old. Today, the average life expectancy in the United States is close to 80. It's totally insane that you believe that you should be able to work from the time that you are essentially 20 to the time that you are 65, which is a 45-year period, pay in, and then you'll receive Social Security benefits sufficient to support you and your family, you and your wife or whatever, for like another 20 years. That's crazy talk. That is not fiscally sustainable. The notion that if you have to raise the retirement age to 67 or 68, that everyone is going to fall apart. My parents are that age. My parents are not retired. And they shouldn't retire. It would be very bad for them to retire. By the way, it's disrespectful to people who are 67, 68, 69 years old to suggest that they are in the same shape as people who are 65 were in 1940. It's not true at all. Have you met a 65-year-old lately? 65-year-olds are not old in the United States. They're not. 68-year-olds are not old in the United States. Again, Joe Biden thinks he's not old, and that dude is running for president again, and that dude actually is old, and he's 81. I fail to see how a country in which our entire leadership class is 80 plus is telling you that we should have a retirement age of 65. It makes no sense at all.
So, lots of points made there. Sorry for the phone call. So he, again, on his show today, he talked about all that. And his point one is that we're not in a fiscal position in the United States where we can sustain this. And that's the truth. And he presented a lot of data today to back that up. And a lot of reasons why people, Republican and Democrat, don't want to talk about that is, one, it's a bummer. And two, it's just, if you're going to say a problem and then not address the problem, well, I guess what's the point of bringing it up? If you're going to address the problem, people assume you're going to do something to solve it, but the solutions to solve it would usually mean something like raising the retirement age or trying to phase it out somehow. But that would mean that someone who basically the government took money from, because they're taking money from you and you're hoping one day you're going to get that payout when you can retire. So people don't want to be shafted, but we just kind of don't have everything we needed to kind of fund it. So someone has to get shafted, but why? Who wants to volunteer? But it's not feasible. But Cernovich retweeted this particular video. He said, "How many conservative pundits came from a working class background? My dad worked in factories. You're not cutting Medicaid rich kids, even though my dad still works in his 70s, machine operator. My grandpa worked until 91. People are really taking his arguments to be like some kind of class warfare situation, which he rebutted. He's like, how is it elitist for people to work or say that there's meaning in work? And he's like, and because people said things like, you work behind a desk saying stuff, of course you don't want to retire, of course you like your job. He's like, yep, I like my job. And I assume people who are plumbers and other folks still like their job. He's like, I know plumbers and stuff who don't want to retire because they like their job. But he's also made the point of, there are plenty of people, which I know, I have people in my family who retired from their job, and then so they retired from that particular job, and then they went and got another job, or they're pursuing another passion plus another job or whatever. So he's like, that's not retirement. That's just retiring from leaving one job and getting another job, usually one that people like. So people work all these years at a particular job, retire from that job, still get money from and benefits from that job that they retired from, and have extra money while they go and do something else. So he's not against he personally doesn't like the idea of retirement, but if you can retire yourself and have the money to do that, that's fine. He's not saying you can't do that or shouldn't be able to do that. But when you are basically retiring on if you are retiring on, you know, the government's dime or the people's dime, then that kind of becomes a group, I guess, conversation in a way. So I don't know, I didn't think all the backlash he was receiving was worth it. Because I can understand why it flips and freaks people out when people have these conversations, because no one wants to lose out, but it probably shouldn't have been set up the way that it was. It was, and it's been this way for a while, and at one point someone has to kind of phase something out or change some metrics, or it's just gonna or everyone's just gonna lose everything all at once one day. Um, Cutting military spending and other stuff like that to try to save the budget. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, we spend so much money overseas, or so much money with our military and other stuff like that." Entitlements takes up most of the budget, but people don't want to touch it because it makes people because everybody wants something. Like everybody can acknowledge we're spending too much money, but everybody wants to benefit from it. You know, with healthcare or other stuff like that. So people need to kind of take a hard look in the mirror. I saw some people say things like, "Oh, people wonder how Trump, you know, became the nominee with takes like Ben Shapiro." And like, yeah, I get talking about fiscal responsibility is not always likable, because people are having hard conversations about money. You know, everybody doesn't want to hear the Dave Ramsey, you might have to eat rice and beans. You know, people want to, you know that they're going to have the safety net and not have to um stop. You know, they don't want to make those kind of adjustments or sacrifices if they don't need to. And again, some people get social security money that definitely didn't pay into all that to get all the money back that they're getting, um but there's some people who will get shafted. Um and it's just the truth. So we can wait for the terrible explosion of the end, or we can do something about it. So I I don't think he had a crazy opinion for someone who is a conservative. But I know we have a lot of populist people on the right who when we have conversations about, like, I don't know, illegal immigration, like they're taking up all the resources they should be used for for our people. Well, if people really need it, but we do have an overall spending problem. Oh, right. So it's not just that the people are coming in from other places taking resources, like we're spending too much money, period. You know, so sometimes I see this mentality of someone is taking from that, they're taking things, but these things should belong to me. And sometimes it's just like, no, we should stop spending money that we don't have, because we're robbing not just our children but their children and their children, and just building more debt. um Someone had a crazy statement when they were addressing Ben yesterday. I think they said it to Matt Walsh and he replied to it. And it was something along the lines of, I paid into it for my children, so now my children have to pay for me or something. And they're just kind of like, no, we should want to not have to put our children in that position. And perhaps our parents should have been like, no, I don't want to put our children in that kind of position. But it is a Ponzi scheme, essentially. It is. um um and it's all gonna fall down eventually. People could be mad at Ben Shapiro for talking about it, but the truth is the truth. But as far as like his personal opinions on retirement, I mean, he laid out a lot of data today about why it's good to work, and if people do retire, before they would like go have community, like be involved in their churches or do social clubs. But there's a lot of social infrastructure that we don't have today. He doesn't want people to retire and then, I don't know, be alone in nursing homes or something like that. So um his social personal opinions, there's some data or whatever. You cannot agree with that. But as far as Social Security being in danger, of course, that's a bad situation. So, but anyway, um, enough of that. If you guys can go listen to his own show if you want to know about that drama. Anyway, yesterday I saw the movie Cabrini, and it was wonderful. So it was. I first heard about the film from TikTok, uh, because someone was complaining about the film because the same director who did Sound of Freedom, which was also a really well done film, they were angry that the same person made this film, and they're like, she's a patron saint of immigrants, and they're mixing it with this QAnon, na 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 na, and um, I excuse me, if you just watch Sound of Freedom, it's not like a big QAnon conspiracy sort of thing. If you want to say there's some wacky interviews or whatever with somebody out there, that's fine. But the movie itself was just a good movie. Uh and just go enjoy it, and be concerned about people who are sex trafficked, because it does happen. Okay? But anyway, this movie is a different film, same director, same great quality, same great. I like his style. He could tell a story really well. Um, so he's told a story about an Italian immigrant named friend uh, Jessica Cabrini, who created all of these orphanages and hospitals and stuff for people all over the world. And so originally she wanted to start her mission in Asia, and people kept like turning her down, and she talked to the Pope and stuff, and they're like, okay, we'll start here in New York, because the immigrant children in New York were just being treated horribly. So she went to New York and 5 Points and started there, and fought for these kids, and ended up building an empire of hope. So I thought the acting was great. I liked I thought, again, it was well directed, well written. The shots were beautiful. I thought it was a great period piece. I write historical fiction, as you guys know. So I didn't really I didn't really know much about Cabrini myself. And so I didn't know exactly what time period. I guess I didn't think about what time period it might be. But it was a nice little, uh I don't know, like, surprise for me, and because it would have been like in the 1880s and stuff, where the setting is basically starting off with, and my that's after the time period of my book series. But still neat to see like New York in that time frame. And so when she got to New York, she tried to take a carriage she's like, can we go to 5 Points? He's like, I don't go to 5 Points this time of night. And I'm like, I understand that reference. I understand why, because 5 Points was rough, and there was a lot of violence. There's gang violence, and they definitely treated immigrants very poorly, in New York and stuff. In my book series, it mentions like the Irish, how they were treated, because mine is in a and it was like how it mentioned how black people and the Irish and stuff were treated in New York. My book takes place around like during the Civil War era. So just so you guys know, the book I'm talking about is the color of God's eyes. It's kind of like the American Civil War meets X-Men. So there's like superpowers and other kind of stuff like that. But it is a historical fiction book. So there's, it talks about that time period, and it takes place in the South, but also in New York and stuff too. So it was, neat seeing it all, to take that trip back in time. So I thought the settings were beautiful. It handled very well, but her conviction, her passion, her fearlessness, her boldness was really inspiring. Now there's some debate about, like, is this, a story about like feminine beauty, or is this too feminist? And was there enough faith in it? And it is funny because I was reading some Catholic responses to the movie not too long ago before it came on, and they did have a complaint about there not being enough religion in it. Now, she was obviously very Catholic, and but they complained that a lot of stuff was like bureaucracy and people getting in the way, and her having obstacles that have to really push. But I assume I don't know how much is historically accurate with this particular portrayal, but her being a revolutionary woman doing these sorts of things and having these orphanages and hospitals entirely run by women in an environment where people are anti-Italian and stuff, the pushback that she's getting doesn't seem far-fetched. So there can be definitely bureaucracy in different church structures, certainly. But as far as they complain about situations, like there was one young woman in the story who was a prostitute who ended up going to stay and working in the orphanage, and she had said something about how there's not enough water that could ever cleanse me. And so they're like, oh, she could have talked about the power of baptism or something in that moment, but Cabrini instead talked about how we're survivors, we're both survivors, and kind of went in a more empowerment route. But she did say, though, that we can't control how we come into this world, but God gives us free will on how we live it. So there's the God portion there, but they said it's still like focused on what we decide to do with it rather than his grace, I suppose. They didn't say it exactly that way in the article, but I after I saw the film and was still like in the theater, got just kind of processing it. My only complaint really about it was, and I didn't know how strong of a feeling that I had to really excuse me to really be a complaint. But they could have had more actual gospel in it, I guess. Like, I don't know, I guess there could have been a scene where they baptized the prostitute or whatever. That could have been nice. That probably would have erased maybe many of these complaints that they're going on in some of these Catholic pages about it. But I thought she was delivering a lot of lines that really spoke to me. Like she said, because she was sick and people expected her to die in a few years and stuff. People are like, how are you going to accomplish all that you have to do or whatever? How are you going to manage it? And she said, you can either serve your weakness or you can serve your purpose. And I'm just like, sometimes you're in church and you hear a good line the preacher says, and you're just like, And she said that pretty early in the movie. I was literally dwelling on that line like the whole movie. And that wasn't the only bar she dropped. So, and she had this mentality of like, they're like, do you have money to fund this stuff? And she's like, you do the mission and the money will come. I'm like, yes, sister, preach. Like, you believe. And So I thought she was dropping good bars that would make good little sermons here and there throughout the film. So I ultimately I thought it was really well done. A friend of mine, this is Savvy, talked about the ministry was the actions itself. Like Angel Studios does Christian films very well compared to like other sort of hokey stuff that is very preachy. And I do think, you do have to kind of give the ask, when you're doing the gospel stuff though. But as far as a movie form and it telling the story of, doing good things because that's what God commanded us to do. This movie, they had that passion and conviction, um, because we were made in the image of God. Uh, so and she talked about how we can do all things through Him who strengthens us, talking about Christ. And so she quoted some scriptures. Maybe they could have showed her maybe praying some more and other stuff like that, but overall, she really had a passion um, to help people regardless of their background, and to help the forgotten, and we're called to do that. So I I thought it was a great film. I thought it was a great film, and it's something that um because my mom was like, I heard you wanted to see it because the liberals didn't like it or something. I'm like, I only saw one TikTok about it, so I don't know how intense the narrative against the film is. But I said I can't really see people having a big issue with this on either side, except for the fact because there was such a focus on helping the immigrant that there people would probably on the left be like, see, we need to do more for folks, etc. Blah blah blah. But the thing that I can imagine them not liking is at the end of the movie. A little spoiler here. I don't think it'll like ruin anything, but she's told by someone. I won't say who it is, but she's told by someone. They're like, it's a shame that you're not a man because you would have made one heck of a man. And she's like, no, men could never do what we do. And so me and my sisters, we just started snapping, like, and we're not feminist or whatever, and we're not huge on like the girl power stuff, but that line still resonated because there's too many people trying to pretend like men and women are interchangeable today, and men and women are there's less differences than what you think, but there are some big differences in our nature, and of course physically what we can do or what we're ordered to do, or biblically maybe perhaps you could say what we're instructed to do. But men are not women. And women were created to do what men can't do, and that's just a fact. So her saying that line as kind of like the exclamation point to the film um was great, especially because people were at times trying to put her down and say, no, you can't do this. And so she would just put it out there like, is it because I'm a woman? Is it because I'm Italian? Like she just like let's put the bias out there right in the forefront. And sometimes it was because she was a woman, or people were concerned about whether you fail or succeed. It's people are going to use you as an example, so you better be ready for how everything falls. If it falls, you're gonna prove that women can't do it. And if you succeed, you're gonna be this icon. um so it was a great exclamation point to and I think people feel like to rally around women. But I think it's important to celebrate women, courageous, bold, caring, nurturing women like this, um because there's a lot of people who are trying to say that a man could put on a dress and be a woman. Like we talked yesterday about Lady Gaga celebrating Dylan Mulvaney on International Women's Day, and and Lady Gaga was just like, we need to celebrate all women, and like trans women are women. Like that's what they'll say, but the truth is that men could never do what we do. That's just the truth. We're not built the same. And even if you find someone who does a pretty decent imitation, it's still not the same. So maybe that little line at the end will trigger some folks, but I think there's important lessons in there that everyone can take about the dignity of all human beings, and our work to care for those who are in need of care and justice, and to serve your purpose and not your weakness. Uh, too many people are so invested in being a victim instead of saying, what can I do in this life to improve this world, to see what God has for me and to meet that, and not wait for someone else to sustain me. Know that God is my source. I'll just have to run with the vision, you know, and believe that he'll order my footsteps. So I I just thought it was great. So I recommend it. Recommend people go see it. I think it's really fascinating. Angel Studios, how they came to be, because at first they were like an app or something that would take out swear words and stuff of movies or inappropriate scenes in movies, and like Disney and other folks basically tried to sue it out of existence because they didn't like the application that they would do to their content or whatever. And so then they just decided to start making movies. And so now they're doing quite well, and they still have their pay it forward, thing going on. So the reason why I wanted to see it, by the way, I did find out about the film because of the TikTok, but I did want to see it because I knew it was Angel Studios, and I did want to support them because I like the work that they did, and and I want to see what else they can do, and this was a good film. It was genuinely, and I don't mean a good film for Christians. I mean, it was a good film. It was a really good film. So I recommend it. I enjoyed it. I really liked it, and it's worth supporting. So go ahead and check it out. Thank you guys for joining me. Please go to blacktnews.com. Check out different content on my website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate, because it does cost to stream around my website, all the stuff so you guys can support. I do very much appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch at my store, like I already mentioned this earlier, but it's I'm not the victim you're looking for. I got the be better not bitter shirt and other things as well. I did mention my book already, The Color of God's Eyes and the Sequel of Song on the Devil's Lips. That is my historical fiction fantasy book, so you guys can check that out. There was one point in the movie where something happened, and I was like so tempted to whip out my phone and Google, because that's what I normally do if I'm watching like something historical, and I'm like, I need to know what happened or if this is real, or because I'm like, the suspense here is like a bit much right now, but that's good, when the film makes you feel that way. Again, it was overall a good film, and not just like a on a scale, a special rating system because it was a Christian movie. It was just overall a really good film. So yeah, again, go check that out, and go make sure you leave my go to the website, join my email list if you guys haven't done that, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, wait, I guess before I go, I am going to be on the radio tomorrow with Justin Barclay. I should be on. He does stream his stuff, so it's beyond radio, but I'll be on at 8 p.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Eastern time, and we're going to be talking about State of the Union and Joe Biden coming to Michigan and other stuff. So just wanted to drop in that last piece of information before I let you go. So anyway, thank you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.